Good morning, all, and welcome to today's program. As you know that from March 7, Open Education Week program started, and it will be continued until March 11. And the main objective of celebrating Open Education Week is to raise awareness about global open education and its impact on teaching and learning. As a part of the Open Education Week activities, today we are going to talk about zero textbook cost, and also we know that open educational resources is one of the key ingredients or part to make the zero textbook program successful. Considering that part, we just organized our today's presentation in two parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you a little overview about open education resources. And then later in the second part, my colleague Zawad will take over and he'll talk about zero textbook cost program. Sorry, by the way, I forgot to tell my name. This is Farhana Akhtar. So open education text program. This is the overview of the total presentation. The first part is the open educational resources, that is OER, and we'll talk about definition, applications, and importance. And under ZTC, zero textbook cost, there will be definition, purpose, benefits, and example. And finally, we have references. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so the first question is, what is OER, or Open Educational Resources? Actually, open educational resources are the resources and that are free, and these resources are mainly used for teaching, learning, and research, for doing research. And since these are free, so though these are, the materials are released under open license, that's why anybody can use free of cost. Apart from this, there are some important features about open educational resources. And the first thing is it's primarily digital. So everything can be found online. And the second part is the materials can be used online, hybrid or face-to-face learning environments. And finally, since the materials are released under open license, that's why depending on the license, some materials can be used in original format, and some materials can be modified, remixed, or redistributed. Next part is like what kind of materials you can find under open educational resources. So there are different formats we can find. The first one is, we can say, definitely textbook. Other one is course readings or modules. There are some other contents are available under OER, that is games or simulations or maybe video streamings, learning applications, underlining applications, curriculum or quizzes or assessment tools are available. Or apart from all this format, any kind of materials that are used for education purposes, that can be considered as open educational resources. Now the next question is, where can you find the open educational resources content? The first source is definitely college and universities. Second, we can think about libraries. Also, we have archival organizations, government agencies, commercial organizations, suppose publishers. And finally, any individual person or faculty, they can develop any kind of content and also can share, and those contents can be considered as OER. Now the next part is how OER are used. Definitely the first user is the student, and since all the contents are found digitally, so students can access OER through online, and since OER are free of cost, so students can access with zero cost. And they can download, they can make a digital copy, purchase or print, whatever, based on their wish. Students can do that. The second largest users, we can think about educators, and they can create, tailor, or share OER based on the curriculum, course curriculum. Another users or institutions, they can leverage OERs to reduce student out-of-pocket cost. Authors can also disseminate their work, and this is another source. And finally, entrepreneurs, and they can build business around OER by offering value-added products. The question is like why we should consider OER. In the previous slide, I talked about like OERs are free and digitally found through online. So it can, in that case, we can think about that it doesn't cost anything. So it gives a release. It gives a comfort to for the students since there is no finance related here. And also, if we think about the digital alternatives, in some other digital alternatives, we can think about where we can find the resources, but maybe all those digital alternatives, they need subscription. So though subscription fee is less, but it also creates a little financial stress. So, and finally, another one is the traditional publishing books, that textbook we consider. For that, there is a problem is like, if there is any modification or improvement is required, so it's really tough. So they create new versions and it costs extra money. So considering all these things, since OER is free and it's really development or improvement is achievable easily, so that's why we can think about that OER is definitely a big source for educational purposes. So the next slide. Yeah, so since we in the first slide we talked about that ZTC, for making the ZTC program successful, OER is one of the methods. So that's why our main goal is ZTC, but initially we gave an overview about OER. Now I think Jawad will take over and he will talk about ZTC.
Yes, thank you, Farhana. So what I'm going to talk about is about ZTC, which stands for Zero Textbook Cost. I'm going to talk about the definition, purpose, and relationship between ZTC and OER. Some benefits of ZTC, which there are like a lot of overlaps between ZTC benefits and OER, and some available resources. And at the end, we're going to have an example of ZTC course. Okay. So before I start, I'm going to have two definitions about the differences between ZTC course and ZTC program. ZTC course is a course that when we talk about zero text cost in general, that means any courses or any program that there is no cost to students if they want to enroll in that course. When we talk about ZTC program is a set of courses that when a student passes all those courses, that a student is entitled to get a credential, like a diploma or undergrad degree. So in ZTC program, all courses are ZTC courses, but you can have a normal program and only a couple of your courses would be ZTC course in that case. So the main difference is ZTC course is kind of like a subcategory of a ZTC program. Some of the features of ZTC is there is no cost to students for purchasing book, but it doesn't mean that the course is totally free for students. There might be other costs that students have to pay for other things for that course, but there will be absolutely no price to pay for buying or purchasing the books. Zero cost to students does not guarantee zero cost to institution. For example, let's say at your university, you provide a ZTC course, and one of the material from that ZTC course is from a library or from a database that your university has purchased the subscription. So if you're a student in that university or college, you don't have to pay to access to that library, but it doesn't mean that that library is free for everyone. That library is free for your university, which your university already paid for it. But when you're a student, that will be free for you. Is no textbook is a ZTC? Here, there's a debate. For some courses, there is no textbook provided, In some universities, they consider those ones as ZTC, but some other universities, they say, okay, if there is no textbook, that's not ZTC. So there is no set definition here. Depends on like where you are studying. Like you may have different definition. Some sources of ZTC. One of the main source of ZTC is what Farhana explained, and that's OER, Open Education Resources. Maybe like 90% of materials to create a ZTC course is coming from OER. But OER is not the only way to make a ZTC course. There are a couple of other methods or sources, such as public domain, such as library resources, or TA or teacher handouts. If you have a course created by those sources, that's again ZTC, but it's not sourced by open education resources. Purpose of ZTC. In this slide, we have a statistic. We have statistics done in Virginia State University. So what it said is 60% of students report that they didn't purchase a book because the price was so high. And the same study has done in University of British Columbia a couple of years ago. This study here was done in 2014. So what this tries to tell us is when the students want to enroll in any courses, if they see that they have to pay nothing to purchase a book, there are more chances that they're going to enroll in those courses. And also some studies shows that for those courses that students don't need to pay anything for the books, they don't drop the course. So, and the rate of the withdrawal rate is like much lower than in comparison with the other normal courses that you have to pay for your textbooks. And also in the second graph here, as we see that 82%, the price of the books increased by 82%, like from 2003 to 2013, which is almost like 2 or 3 times more than CPI overall consumer prices. But that's what just trying to tell us that how expensive the books are and how good it is if you don't have to pay for any books. Purpose of ZTC, which are kind of like the same thing as OER because they're kind of like the same when it comes to this slide. The main benefit is it's more affordable for students and for school. And it encourages a faculty to use free materials in their courses. The other thing is when you have a ZTC course, because all the materials is online, the students, before enrolling, they can go and see all the chapters, all the contents, and then they decide if this course is good for them, if they have any interest in that course or not. Because studies shows if they have like interest in courses, they have more chances to get better grades. So if you have a ZTC course, students can enroll in the course. A student can check all the chapters before enrolling. And that's one main benefit of ZTC. Also, ZTC can have different benefits for instructor as well. For students, we said that it's lower the cost. There is no money needs to be paid for books. It enables students to have equal access to course material, and they can check all the chapters before enrolling, which can be also included as a benefit for instructor. But there are also some other benefits specifically for instructor. If they have ZTC course, what they can do, they can collaborate with their peers for creating OER. Usually, like when it comes to open resources education, like they say that we have 5 R's, that if we take care of all those 5 R's, we can have a like really good OERs. The first one is like retain, which means that the right to make your own control or the content that you're making. The other one is the reuse, and that's the right to use the content in wide range of ways, for example, in a class, in a study group, or website, or in a video. The third one is revise, which means the right to adopt, adjust, modify, or alter the content. For example, if you get OER from one language and you want to do it in another language, you have right to translate that one, and that's known as revise. The fourth one is remix, which is the right to combine the original or revised content with some other OER to make a new content. And that's one of the main benefits of ZTC for instructor. And the fifth bar is like redistribute, which means the right to share the copies of the original contents. So if you take care of all these 5 R's, usually they say you have a like really good OER or ZTC course. In this slide, we see some available resources for OER, and we try to put like different resources from different countries. As you see, the USA, China, Japan, and like because in British, French universities, we can have different. Well, what we're trying to establish here is like OER is not only for one country or one continent. No matter where you live, you can still get benefits of having OER and ZTC courses. Okay, here I have an example about how to create a ZTC program or ZTC course for an instructor or even for a student. Okay, can you see my web browser? Okay, perfect. So this is just only one example of how you can get your content for a ZTC course. This website is very famous. It's claimed that it's the world's most popular place to get material for ZTC, but you can find like so many of these websites or so many of these libraries online, and that's free to access. So for this one, first you have to choose your discipline. Because we have an example here for chemistry, so I'm going to say like, you know, I want to go to the chemistry department. And when you go to the chemistry or anything, at the top part of the website, you should be able to see all the other categories, but that's not a big deal. So in each discipline, you have 2 or 3 categories here. The first one, which is known as campus bookshelves, if you enter that one, what you can see is different universities or colleges. This is an American website, so you can see the American universities that use some ZTC courses in your discipline, in this case in chemistry. So for example, if you're studying in, I don't know, Brevard College, you can go to Brevard College and see if there is any profs or any courses using any ZTC, and you can get some information about that one. But this is not what I mainly wanted to show. If you go to the second part, the bookshelves here, you can see the courses that already are created based on zero text program. So let's say you want to study about, I don't know, general chemistry. You go to that one, and then you see different courses or different chapters that are about general chemistry. For example, let's say I want to study this book, Chemical Principles by Dickerson. So here in this book, like there are different chapters, like you can pick what you want. Let's say as an instructor, you want to create a content. So what you can do, you can take one chapter from this book, another chapter from the other book, and combine all together to create your ZTC program. In this example for this website, if you're a student, yes, everything is free for you. You can go to, I don't know, maybe you want to study about the molecules, and you go to this page and you get all the information about the molecules, all the graphs and everything. But if you're an instructor and you want to modify, as we talked about those 5 R's in OER, what you have to do, you have to open an account in this website. Yep. So you have to fill a form here as an instructor, and the only information that it asks you is a link to your page URL. So if you already have a page with your institution, what you can do, you can copy paste your link to that form, and then it's going to give you an access. It's going to give you a free subscription to the website. So what you can do after is you can create your own content using like different resources, and you can actually make a course or chapter in that website. So students from your college, from your university, or from all around the world can have an access to your material for free. I can dig into this website more, but I guess what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to the slides, and if we have time at the end of the presentation, we can again come back to this website and we can talk about this one more. But that was just an example of ZTC, how to make a ZTC content. And in this slide, these are just a couple of references that we use to make this presentation. and handouts will be ready later, so I'm going to pass this one. And for the last part of this presentation, we have an example from our university, Memorial University of Newfoundland, Dr. Erika Merschrod, and I apologize in advance for mispronouncing the last name. And she's from Department of Chemistry, and we are so happy to have her here. And I'll hand it to her.
Thank you very much, Shava. This is a topic I'm quite passionate about. So I'm going to share my screen, and then you'll be able to see a few examples here. So first, I wanted to highlight something that was talked about before, these 5 R's. For me, that really comes to the core of the value that I see in the zero textbook cost. So one is, okay, it's free for the students, right? That's a biggie. I think that's really important. I think that's part of our responsibility as a public university, is to be able to provide that accessibility. But the other part, the reusing, the remastering, the remixing, all that can really benefit our pedagogy as well as the practical aspects of it. So I'll give you a couple examples that I've done within chemistry, but it translates over. This bccampus.ca is a consortium in BC for online textbooks. They have a lot of different online textbooks available. This used to be called Z-Cred, which I thought was pretty cute. So in the US, it was called Z-Degree, and then in Canada, it was called Z-Cred, which I liked, but apparently it created a lot of confusion as to what that meant. You get 0 credit or what? So anyway, so that's sort of some of the origin of how things got started in Canada. And you'll notice on the LibreText website that Javad showed was the Athabasca uses LibreText for a number of their courses in chemistry, and British Columbia Institute of Technology, BCIT, also does. Now, I'll show you a couple other examples from Canada. So as I mentioned, BC has a big repository of open textbooks in all kinds of subjects. So you can really see a lot of different options here. Now, many of these options are actually just an import of Openstacks. A lot of the LibreText is also an import from Openstacks, which I'll show you. So some of you might not know the background behind LibreText, but UC Davis had this kind of Chem Wiki, and it used to be people would add to it and you could send pages, but it didn't have a static content. So it was hard for faculty to use it as the textbook. When they morphed into LibreText, now you can kind of freeze, as Javad told you, you can freeze the content. You can say, okay, I'll take these pages and this content will stay here under my title, which is really useful. And so a lot of that content is actually now imported from OpenStax as well. Here's another example from Ontario. And I'll post some links into the chat when I'm done here with, again, open library, lots of different books. You can actually go in and create your own textbooks in, for example, this open library. And the nice thing with that is you can put in the content. The students can view it in a few different formats, like download a PDF or view it online. But last time I had checked, you have to be in Ontario to be able to get an account to use that. But I don't know if that's still true. So on to OpenStack. So this is out of Rice University in the US. They got a big grant from the NSF, which is like the NSERC equivalent in the US. And basically it bought professors time to write a textbook. And then the outcome of that textbook was going to be a free and open textbook. So it's not just free, it's fully adaptable, fully editable. You can do whatever you want with it, all 5 R's. So the nice thing with these textbooks was that they were written. It wasn't just a collection of items put together. They were written as a text. They had a coherent set of examples and end of chapter problems and all that, and they were peer reviewed. So it was really a textbook that you could rely on. And they just have a lot of different subjects here. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So I'll show you specifically chemistry one that I'm more familiar with. So the book details here are basically you can, and this is going to be true for all of them, you can view it online. I'll show you that in a sec. You can get it on a Kindle or get it on an app. You can download a PDF. You can actually order a print copy in the US, so it's basically just provided at cost, but I don't know if anyone's done that, and it's not necessarily cheap. And you can see here, for example, the senior contributing authors, so these are a number of professors in the US, and then other people who have added in. So in addition to the book itself, there's other things that come with a textbook that are handy. In this case, you have a whole OER Commons that I'll show you in a second. You get the slides that you would get from any textbook. And also you have these course cartridges. So you can import directly the textbook into D2L. So now if at any point you have a question, just speak up or stop me. Now, this is tricky. My tab is right next to the sharing tab. Good, okay. So this is the OER hub that's linked over here. And this is a place where people post various things. So like they didn't used to have a D2L import. So for example, I posted here a couple years ago, I made some zip files that could be imported into D2L, and I shared those so that other people could upload it. But there's many other things, different versions of slides, particular topics on a particular type of topic, balancing chemical equations. Some of them are lab activities. There's a lot here that you can access, download, and use, and you can upload and post as well when you make something. So what does it look like when I actually use it? I'll show you some examples that kind of show what I really like about this, the fact that you can edit it and adapt it. So first, I just did a bulk import. This is before they had the import cartridge. So I just wrote a small script to turn their XML format into something that I could put in Brightspace. And the nice thing about that is you can write, a quick CSS file. And if all this is just letters that don't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. But for those who know, the nice thing is you can really set all of these different aspects like sizes of pictures and numbering of pictures and this sort of thing. And you can add in, for example, I have at the bottom of my pages, chemistry is licensed under Creative Commons attribute, download for free, adapted by me. I don't know why it cuts off on this page. So you can just import the whole thing wholesale. And so I have a course called Openstack Chemistry that I can give anyone access to, and they can do whatever they want and play with it. So within that, this is a whole textbook. So within that, I've used the textbook in a number of different courses, primarily Chemistry 1010, which is our intro, very beginning chemistry course, not assuming any prior chemistry knowledge. And in that class, we often get students who struggle with math, who think that they're not good at math, and that perception is already a barrier for them, whether it's true or not. And so I've used it successfully in that course. Students really took to it. We had a much higher success rate than in previous semesters. And I also use it in Chemistry 1050, which is the first semester of our 2-semester intro chem sequence. So I'll show you something that I do here. So I've imported some of the pages, some of the sections of the book here. And so I have a section that's going to introduce the unit 3 atoms. And I can edit it. So for example, I put in a video here. So I just, go to edit HTML, and then I just put in add a video. So I just say add a video note, and I can start recording, and it will generate closed captioning for you as well. So you can really put in a lot of personalization there. And for me, that's very important for this unit because it starts with quantum mechanics, and that really scares students. So before they see the dreaded Q word, they have a video from me saying, this is in practice what it means. Don't worry about it. You can just read through this. Unfortunately, the video note tool in Brightspace seems designed to pick a really awkward still. So my videos, the still that comes with it are always me going, you know, but anyway, aside from that, that's not the fault of the textbook. And then you can also incorporate a lot of useful tools. So OpenStax already incorporates a lot of tools from PhET, P-H-E-T. I'll put a link to that in the chat, and that's for a lot of different science disciplines. They have little interactive games or videos or simulations that you can kind of play with. So here you can put together atoms and see if they're going to be radioactive or not, that sort of thing. So you can really put in a lot of personalization and a lot of interactivity. And you can break it into smaller chunks, right? So students are only reading maybe, a couple screenfuls of text, and that's it. Now, the other thing that I really like about it in terms of adaptability is we can really bring up to the minute examples. So we don't have to wait for a new version of the textbook to come out and bring in fresh examples that are actually about 2 years old by the time, the textbook lands in the students' laps. And something else I didn't mention initially, but I'm sure many of you have already seen this, but if you haven't, for a subject like chemistry, and I know it's true for other disciplines as well, every intro chem textbook is the same. They're all basically the same. It really doesn't matter. They all cover the same topics, sometimes in the same order, sometimes not. And again, you can adapt that to your course and just pick out the parts that you need for that course. So yeah, so breaking it into little chunks is very important. Now, the other thing that I think is really important for the adaptability, there's another unflattering view of me, is being able to take out some of the items which aren't something that I can support anymore. So for example, I've been trying to decolonize my content for a number of years now. And a lot of our educational materials in Canada are really based on an Anglo history of science. So they're basically based in primarily in England in terms of their explanation of how things came to be, and occasionally they mention the Greeks, right? So to really change that, you have to be able to just go in and edit the textbook. So for example, here we have a section on light as a particle. We've been teaching them about waves and frequency and energy, and now suddenly we need to say that light is also a particle. We call it a photon. Now, the textbook will sometimes go into this business about, well, Newton thought that they were particles of light that hit your eye, and then someone else thought it was waves and whatever. But that's really just not relevant to learning the material. Like, why do we have to go over mistakes that old European guys made? Not that interesting. So I can put in here, as a historical side note, European scientists were convinced by Newton that light was composed of particles. Then work by Maxwell convinced them that light had to be composed of waves. It took Einstein to show them that light could be both a wave and a particle. This wave-particle duality was difficult to imagine and to accept because European science has traditionally valued a deterministic and absolutist view. In other knowledge systems, dualities are inherent in many concepts and understandings. So I'm just putting out front there that it doesn't have to be this big thing of, is it a wave, is it a particle? It can be both, right? Why not both? So another thing that I find very useful as well is to put in a video with the examples. So I actually talk them through the example. Sometimes it'll have me actually writing out the steps by hand. And students really like that. They really like that commentary, that explanation. So anyway, we have plenty of time, I think, for questions. So I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And and there's this H5p workshop coming up. There's so much cool stuff you could do with an open textbook resource at H5p that I've always wanted to do, never have had time. But that I see is like those two things together would be just wow for a course.
Okay, thank you for attending, and hopefully see you tomorrow again.
Thank you all.